Loud. Okay, so today is Monday, November 16th, and this is the Buddhist Neigong class with Rinsen. And I think this is class, I don't know what it is, class 7 or 8, something like that. Is it 8? Ankin seems to know. Oh, wait, 7. No, it's 8. That's math, guys, doing this. Wait a minute, that's not fair. So 8, I think, is what we get. Okay. So it's class 8, we've officially clarified. So I'm going to address one issue or one question about Class 7's content, and then we're going to move on to kind of a new area of study within this process. Last week, I just needed to not do this because we finished up a whole bunch of rituals for the new temple site, which was a fantastic experience. It was really well timed and very nourishing and just exhausting. And so I'm grateful to have taken the week off, and I'm grateful to be back in the Qigong saddle, I guess, so to speak, and to move this thing forward. So the question is, okay, about dissolving, no, about dispersing, right? So again, this question is related to when you connect with a sensation in the body that is not that feels stuck or painful or something like this. One of the approaches is to just keep grounding it. Okay. And again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time rehashing that here, but you can look at the earlier videos to uncover that if you haven't yet. And then a distinct approach, an additional approach to that is to then what's called disperse. And so the general concept here is you take the ache or the pain or the sensation of difficulty in the body, and you have to fully contact it with your mind. You stay there, and then basically what you do is you pull it out. You have this sensation like you're pulling the feeling out of the body, and it comes out into your etheric field or your energetic body. And the energetic body is cycling. It's not just kind of out there like a shell. It's a thing in movement, like the magnetic field of the earth is not a static thing, it's a moving thing. And so, what the basic procedure is, you contact the difficulty or the pain, and after you've grounded and centered and rooted and done what you can to disperse it downwards, then you additionally take what's left of it and you bring it outside. And what happens is it gets to the edge of your field and then you release it. And what I made some effort to make clear is that you don't take that and just fling it out into the world and let it go. This is not appropriate. Okay, everything has karma to it. What you do with your body, what you do with your words, and what you think. So actually, as strange as it may seem, there's a karmic result to all this stuff. And so it's not really in your interest to just think about taking negativities and sending it out to the world. You can do better. And fortunately, it's actually more effective. You take the negative feeling, the pain, and you let it join into the cycling. And at that point, it dissolves and it goes down the sides and then it comes back up and cycles through. And as it dissolves, you can imagine or sense or experience this difficult situation. You imagine it becoming purified, like pure light, pure nectar. It's not like you take this negativity and cycle it through you. You move it outside, you see it transmute into light, and then it cycles through and becomes part of healthy circulation. And the basis of this is that ill health in the body is at its root a matter of non circulation. Okay, things become stagnant in the body. So your immune system's ability to repel things like the coronavirus or other stuff, as well as psychic, weirdness from people and all kinds of stuff, has to do with your ability to circulate chi through the body. When things cannot circulate, they become stagnant. When things become stagnant, they become inflamed. When things become inflamed and stagnant, then it's the gateway to ill health. Okay, and so all Chinese medical, traditional Chinese medical approaches use this as something of a baseline approach. Okay, does that make sense to everybody? So it's an imaginative practice it's a complementary practice to the Grounding is the dispersing. Okay. Does that clarify that point for you, Gyoshiki? Okay. It's a very
Yes, dissolves was the key word.
yeah, dispersing. Okay, dispersing. You disperse it, and then it cycles. Okay.
But when you said it
Dissolving.
dissolves, that's the part that I got. Go ahead.
Yeah, dissolving. I want to just be very clear about it. Dispersing is what I'm talking about. You take out here, you disperse it, and it kind of
Mhm.
cycles. Okay. Dissolving, just to be very clear, is what I'm going to introduce today. And it's a
Okay.
separate thing. And these words are in some way arbitrary, but it's important to try to keep clear because otherwise it gets very confusing, right? And I stumble on them too. I keep looking at my notes to make sure I say the right word. Okay. So, okay, so we've got centering, right? And then we've got grounding and rootedness, rooting. And then we talked last time about dispersing, which is what we talked about now, sending it outside and then recycling, dispersing and recycling, you could say. Disperse, transmute, recycle, something like this. Now, dissolving is a different gear, okay? And this one for Zen practitioners is actually the one that we teach right away, whether we name it as such or not. So if a person is taking up a meditation practice, and let's say there's a pain in the knee or something like this, the guidance is to just see it, acknowledge it, let it go, and come back to the breath. Okay. And then if the pain becomes too much, that you can't let it go, that the sensation of pain becomes a dominant feature in your experience, then the practitioner is guided such that you can, okay, let go of counting the breaths and bring your attention fully into the sensation in the body and just put your mind right in the sensation. Okay. And just watch it, just observe it, just witness it. So just witness the pain and just stay with it. Now, what ends up happening if someone does this with any level of ongoing samadhi or depth, there's a funny thing that happens, okay? And we usually don't talk about it. So I'm delighted to have a venue to actually teach about this a little bit. But let's say this is your sensation of pain, okay, metaphorically. So, you got a pain in the back or a pain in the knee or what have you. There's the sensation of pain, okay? Now, if you put your mind right on the sensation of pain and just kind of stay with it, there's a funny thing that can happen where you penetrate it and you go into the pain. And it's like you slip inside it and then you're kind of in here. And what you find is that this sensation of pain that if you push it away and resist it like this, it's a knot and it's very tight and it's very physical and it's like a hard thing, okay? When you put your mind there and just kind of lean into it more and more and more, it suddenly opens up and there's space. So there's space inside the sensation, okay? If you can settle down and just pay attention to it without flinching. Okay, when you grit and flinch and push back, you substantiate the sensation of pain as a physical thing. It becomes harder. It becomes more tangible to you. Okay, when you relax and keep your attention on it and pierce it, what you find is that there's actually space in there. Okay, and so this can have kind of an interesting sense experience of the senses where you bring your awareness into the sensation of pain and you just keep penetrating it, I guess the word, or piercing it. You have your mind go directly into the sensation and you basically merge with the sensation so that the sensation and the sensor are not separate. You become the thing. And what happens is it becomes like a thing like this big, and then you relax more and it gets more spacious, and you relax more and it gets more and more spacious until it just actually dissolves. So you become, when you merge with the pain, it can actually just dissolve in this way. And that's the why I'm being finicky about the term dissolving. Okay. So dissolving is you just put your attention on it and it basically dissipates. Now, it's a strangely misleading thing because the sensation of pain is still experienced. So it's not like the sensation of pain literally goes away. Like, you want to reach for aspirin to take it to make the headache stop. What actually happens is your way of perceiving the headache completely reorients. And it's best expressed by saying that it feels like the headache dissolves, even though the sensations might still be present. So when I work with folks that have chronic pain, for example, someone who's had a traumatic brain injury or they've got nerve damage or something like this, there's a lot of research on chronic pain and how to work with it. And if a person has a body wherein they are going to be constantly zapped with pain, even, I mean, I would advocate for all pharmaceutical interventions that are medically appropriate and so on. Take full advantage of everything we have, throw everything at it that we can. And there's an end to what medicine can do at any given point. There's a horizon there. And so people who have sensation of pain beyond that horizon are can actually get a lot of relief by just learning this basic business about grounding and dispersing, and then finally whatever's left go right inside there and just dissolve it. Okay. So I've had many experiences myself in session where I'm sitting there in retreat and, my knee hurts or what have you, and I'm all fighting this experience of pain. And then something happens. A bird chirps, let's say, outside the temple, and I hear the bird, and my mind goes to the sound of the bird, and then the bird's gone, and then the pain just kind of is gone. And what an instant before was this egregious invasion into my space is now sort of a background non-issue. Okay, so people organically, when they practice Zazen, will stumble into this kind of way of kind of seeing through pain. But I think if you actually direct your mind in this way, it can happen a lot faster. So, so that is the process of dissolving. So, are there any questions about that? Anything that isn't clear about dissolving? Or maybe for some of you who are a bit more seasoned in the Zendo, if you have any experience like this that you can speak to, it might be useful for others to hear it. And if not, that's fine. Shokai, please.
So, what I usually say in beginning instruction, like when I'm asked about pain, is, anything you place your awareness on will dissipate. Is that misleading? Is that?
No, it's not misleading, but it's the way in which you place your attention. So, like, if a person non-judgmentally contacts the sensation, then that's different than if they like are looking at it and they're pissed about it and they're resisting it. You know what I mean? So, what we want to say is gently let yourself pay attention to and contact the sensation without resisting it. So if you give it just a little more shape like that, what we're trying to do is like pull out the aggression. Okay. Usually, if someone has pain, they have an instinctive aggressive response in the body. They flinch or clench or push, and the mind does the same thing. It's encountering something it doesn't want to, and it clenches and flinches and pushes mentally. Right. So what we want to do is make sure that we guide folks to contact it, and just the easiest thing to say to someone who's completely new is say, just watch it. Just pay attention to it. Just watch it. Just get curious about it. Lean in a little bit. Perk up, lean in, get curious. Pay attention to it. Don't resist it. And then eventually, if they sit well, they'll slip inside it and it'll dissipate.
And that's true of positive things too, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Basically any sensation. Usually what happens though is it's the opposite. When a pleasant sensation arises, we tend to clutch at it. So you're sitting there in the Zendo and it's really, it's hot. And then, the gift of a breeze somehow graces across the Zendo and it's like, oh, it feels good on the skin. There's this cool breeze. Oh, and then you kind of like, wait, don't leave me, don't leave me. And it goes. And then, fuck, yeah, it's hot again. And there's this kind of like tussle, you know what I mean? And this is all happening at a very molecular level. I mean, usually it's not narrated so dramatically, but there's this like basic pleasure comes, there's a lunging towards but there's a clutching, see, as opposed to the pushing away, right? So when we start clutching, we want to see the clutch and let go. So just contact the pleasant feeling of the soothing summer breeze or whatever, and enjoy it thoroughly, but don't cling to it. See, so
Mhm.
so so you pay attention without prioritizing.
Mhm.
Fire is hot, wind moves. Sister, yeah?
When we talked about pain, I was thinking when I was in the hospital and they would change the dressing on my
Hmm.
leg, it was very painful, but I would kind of breathe into it and, pay attention to it. Um, sometimes make jokes about it, but that helped to dissipate, I think, or to dissolve it. I didn't totally dissolve it, but at least, that breathing into it and kind of paying attention to it and was helpful to me.
Absolutely. Absolutely, it is. That's right. And the breath is actually, this is sort of like the last little bit that I wanted to go into about the standing posture. And then we're going to move into pulsing, which is like got a whole other topic. And we're going to start getting into the Bodhidharma series, which is pretty cool. And it has to do with breath and working with breath. So kind of a nice segue. Kaishin, something, yeah?
Yeah, I particularly like the words you're using when you're talking about like the mind's aggression in response to the pain and the presence of the clutching at it, because the way I kind of organically found my way into this was in the midst of the pain and the cushion,
Mm-hmm.
trying to let go of something that was so intense and seemed to physiologically just naturally constrict. I kind of eventually found my way into this it's almost like a feeling version of a visualization. That
Mm-hmm.
moment where you're laying on the bed and you really kind of let yourself settle into the mattress. There's
Yeah.
that extra bit of weight and there's that extra bit of like spreading out. And that um, that's kind of the way I've always or I initially encountered dealing with pain, particularly while sitting. And when I did that physiologically, the mind started to um, train itself to respond the same way too. So as the body relaxed, the mind would relax. And it was interesting because I would do this on the cushion, but
Mm-hmm.
the litmus test on how that was progressing for me was every year when I would go donate blood, because the
Yeah.
worst thing for me is needles, and then to watch the needle coming and to feel the pain but not feel the clutching at it. um,
Yeah.
that was an interesting experience.
That's great. I mean, I like that I'm hearing a number of more seasoned Zen students voice. I mean, this capacity just comes as a byproduct of sitting. It will happen. You don't really need to like make a big emphasis on it. It just comes with experience. However, when it's pointed out and you have a little bit of a sense of it, you can actually tune it up and get it a lot sharper, a lot faster. Okay. The challenge is, as long as we're talking about it, is, Zen itself is not necessarily a health practice per se. You know what I mean? So I want to be careful about not kind of moving into that realm. But Neigong itself is a health practice. This is about health and longevity. See, and it's a complementary. Zazen is actually a health enhancing practice by itself, and this is one of the qualities of that. Okay. Now, this applies also to psychological stress. Okay. I don't know if anybody here has noticed anything of late that's stressful at all. I don't know. Maybe not. I mean, Perhaps not. But if so, if you happen to think of anything in your environment that's like fucking stressful, well, see, you can actually do the same business, okay? This centering, grounding, dispersing, and dissolving, okay? A lot of times a physical sensation is actually really easy to deal with because it's very gross and very coarse and very factual. You know what I mean? Like a pain in the spine is just like really clear. Stress about the election, let's say, or fear of the pandemic. Oh, I don't know, is another one. I'm just thinking randomly here. But that stress and that fear actually happens in your body, right? So if I'm seeing some news and I'm hearing some weird way this could go and it's concerning to me or something like that, if I can pay attention to my body, what I at first blush would just perceive as like psychological stress, there's a physical expression of that 100 times out of 100. You will never have psychological stress that doesn't have a physical expression in the body somewhere. Whether or not you're in contact with it, that's another thing, okay? But like when I feel myself getting stressed over election craziness or pandemic cases going up, like I'm here. There's really no virus in this room as far as I know. I'm pretty cloistered about things. Nonetheless, the psychological pressures of pandemic living, okay, has to happen in the body. So when you find yourself stressed psychologically or spiritually, okay, mentally, equivalent terms for me, notice first of all that it's happening, see it, acknowledge it, and then ask yourself or lean into your body. Where is it? Where is this happening? And just the material we did in the last class where you kind of go through the different points in the body, just connect with your body. Where does my body house? Where does my body express this fear or this anger or this whatever it is, right? And if you develop the skill, you will find answers to this, okay? If you remember to ask the question, where do I feel this? You will get an answer. It'll be like in my shoulder. In fact, this shoulder. In fact, it's actually like right here, okay? Or in your neck, or maybe a couple of places, maybe the temples or something, but you will find that there's some version of an answer here for you, okay? Now, when you do that, you've taken your power away from just a purely mental hindrance in the mind, and you brought yourself into contact with your physical reality, okay, which is an expression of that hindrance in the mind. Hindrance, again, is another word for non-circulation, right? A non-flowingness in the mind, a stuck mind. The meaning of samsara is a wheel that will not turn, okay? It's like an axle that won't go. That's the definition of samsara. The mind does not turn right, okay? This is a theme you see over and over, right? So if I can get in contact, if I can remember to get in contact with the physicalization of that stress, then you do the same exact process. First, you get centered, you contact where in your body that stress is happening, you see it, you acknowledge it, and then you ground it. You just bring it right down through the system, see? And then if there's anything left, you dissolve, or no, you disperse and recycle it. Disperse, transmute, recycle it. And then whatever is left, you go right in there and you just dissolve it. And by the time you've done that, it's done. Now, it doesn't mean that, therefore, you no longer have healthy fear. I think being afraid of the virus is intelligent. It's your internal system's giving you a clue or something to be careful about. It's all good, right? I'm not advocating for foolishness. But the suffering you just don't need, and it doesn't help, right? That part is optional, okay? So a lot of times, this is an advantage that Aikido practitioners have, is that we in the practice of Aikido, we confront things physically. and we get a chance to work on this stuff very physically. At least we used to, right? Before pandemia. So anyway, this is something for consideration. You know, if you practice the standing posture by itself and you get yourself used to this business of centering, grounding, rooting, dispersing, transmuting, recycling, and then finally dissolving, you'll find that you can do that shit really fast. You can do it faster than it took me to say it once you're connected with it. It can happen extremely quickly, all right? In the same way that a martial artist will train very specific motor skills that they might do ridiculously slowly, right? It can become really fast. In fact, that's necessary for success in the art, okay? Same thing in music. You know, there's things that my nervous system are accustomed to on guitar that me 50 years ago would have been impossible, but now it's kind of obvious for me, not because of anything special, just a lot of repetition, okay? So this is amongst those kind of skills. You can learn to feel, contact, and deal with and disperse this kind of stress. Does that make sense to everybody? A critique I have of much Zen practice that I see is that people kind of get into this one-minded thing about just drop off body and mind and just sit. And it's not wrong, but most people have no idea what that actually means, right? And so the result is someone can take 20 years butting their head against dropping away body and mind, and what they've ended up doing is actually compacting a lot of stuff. Things can become quite stagnant, and it's unnecessary, right? So anyway, this is the point here. Any conversation on this point or further clarification needed on it? Is anybody completely lost? Okay. Most things like this, most things in the Dharma are actually, when you hear them for the first time, they sound strangely familiar because it's something your body already kind of knows in a kind of a way. You know, I mean, at least that's my experience. I mean, you know, the teachings are innate, really. You are the teachings, right? So, so oftentimes, as odd as it may seem, these things are kind of familiar in a way, right? Okay, so that being said, I thought that would take 10 minutes. It took more, but worth it. So I would like to transition now into what's called the Bodhidharma, Mo Wai Dan, Damo Waidan, Mo Wai Dan. And Damo is a way of saying Bodhidharma, and Waidan is like physical practice, you could say. So the Bodhidharma Waidan. Now these are said to be the exact, tradition has, that these are the exact training postures that Bodhidharma brought with him from India up into China. And when he encountered the Taoist monastics, they were doing very deep practices, but they were physically quite weak. So they were not unskilled or insensitive, but they didn't have longevity as part of the mix, you could say, something like this. And again, if this is unknown to you, I would refer you to The Root of Chinese Qigong. This is a great basic text by Dr. Yang Xuingming. It's a fantastic reference point for all of this stuff. I'm just going to go very briefly here. He's far better scholar on the history of this stuff than I am. But the point was that Bodhidharma felt that for these folks to realize themselves as he understood it, they needed to have more health and longevity, more physical power and capacity, okay? And so it's particularly relevant today. People think of health and longevity, and perhaps, you know, Arnold Schwarzenegger comes to mind as what you're supposed to be or something like this. And what you actually want is an immune system that works. You want a digestive system that's functioning. You want a body that's not chronically inflamed. You want things to be circulating correctly and well. This is actually the point for longevity. Does that make sense to everybody? So this, the first posture that we've done is a preliminary. We've done a just stand there, and I've used the basic standing posture as just sort of a let's get started here, and it is its own practice. Bodhidharma is said to have produced several different standing static postures. And each of these postures that we'll take time and kind of, linger on and enjoy together, but each of these postures creates a certain vibration in the body. You could say it like that, okay? And that there are certain sets of standing postures that when done in the correct sequence with the correct attention, they produce very specific effects in the body. So it's not random. This is heavily researched and vetted over hundreds and hundreds of years, thousands actually. Okay. And Bodhidharma didn't make this up. He brought it from India. Now, historically, who knows? I mean, I don't know. I wasn't there that I can remember right now. Maybe, who knows? I don't know. But I do know that that's how the tradition is communicated, okay? And it's these static postures that then became organized into flowing movements, okay? And those flowing movements ended up becoming organized into martial arts. That's one way to say it, So Tai Chi Chuan is a flowing set of Qigong movements, basically, that has its root with Kung Fu. But they all come from these standing postures and knowing how to generate power in the body. You can do this for martial purpose, but our purpose here is for health and longevity. Okay, does that make sense, everybody? So here, here's what you need to know. Okay, we're gonna do a thing which I'm gonna call pulsing. Okay, there's other names for this, but I think pulsing is the best one that I can think of in English. Pulsing. Okay. Because when you're doing these standing postures, it's actually not just a dormant hibernation state. You're actually actively doing something, okay? And there's a number of different ways to pulse. This is the first point to realize. If I just stood up and showed you one posture and did pulsing, you wouldn't probably be able to see it unless I made it really obvious. And even if you could physically see it, you wouldn't know what I'm internally doing unless I audiated it, told you, expressed it, because you can't tell. Now, some people who are really adept maybe can sense what's going on, but that's extremely rare and kind of not useful for the conversation at hand. Okay, so what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to express to you just kind of as a map, just like a cognitive framework, different aspects of pulsing. Okay, and as an example, I'll just take a really simple example here with my arm. Okay, so if I do something like this with my arm, okay, if I do it like I would really do it, it's like that. I don't know if you can see any movement or not, but in my world, there's a lot of movement going on. If I make it more visible, it's like this, okay? And, so what's the big deal and so what? It doesn't matter, right? Well, this thing is called pulsing. Okay, if I make the whole body do it, you can see it more clearly. I've probably demonstrated this kind of movement before. And if you just took the outward shape of your body and matched mine, you wouldn't be doing it. The pulse is the result of an internal process that's happening. So there's a thing called form, right? And the form is created by function. So if I function correctly internally, it generates the form externally. This is the main point. Okay. If I don't know what the function is inside, then the form is just kind of like the shell of things. It's like a mask of my face. It's not actually my face. All right. So what I'm going to express to you are different aspects of pulsing, what the functions are. And probably we'll be out of time for today, but let's at least get the map of what pulsing can be, what these different functions of pulsing are, and then we'll see what we can do from there. Okay. So just make a little list. Pulsing. Okay. The first thing that you can be working on with pulsing is muscle, just coarse muscle. And that's what most people think of and experience in their body. If they do anything, they lifted weights when they were in high school or something, and they think about muscles. And so they go like this and they think muscle, like as if you were bench pressing. And that's a muscular experience, or a push-up or something like that. The way most people do them is muscles. So you can actually pulse by using your muscles, contracting the muscles and expanding them. It's possible. There's a different way, there's a different function internally, which is to be working with your ligaments. Okay, the tendons, the ligaments of the body. So, like if I go like this, try this with me, hold your finger up like that, and then like make it go down and make it go up, and just do that a few times, and that's muscle. Okay, muscle, 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 muscle. Now, if go like this, relax your finger and pull it back a little bit, and then just release it. That's tendons. That's ligaments. Okay, you're stretching the ligaments of the body and you release them. Okay, like a catapult. Pew. Okay, so it looks the same maybe. Here's muscle, and then here's ligament. It's not the same thing. Okay, this is kind of a funny example, but it's in the body. That feels the way that ligaments feel is they feel like rubber bands. I think I have a rubber band around here, but do I? Well, no, I don't. Alas. Anyway, imagine a rubber band, okay? When you pull the rubber band, that makes tension, and then when you release the rubber band, it expands. So it goes tense and then snaps open. Tense and release it. So if I pull this back, imagine rubber bands in the structure. I pull them all into the center, and that's like pulling the arrow or the string of a bow. Okay, the tops of the bow get pulled down, and the string is coming back, and there's tension there. And what you do is you release the string, and whew, the string snaps back, and the bow opens. So that's ligament. Okay, tendons and ligaments, and this is absolutely essential. Most people have no contact with their tendons. Poor people. Can you imagine that? You live your whole life in a body filled with tendons and you've never said hi to them once. What the hell? Make friends with your tendons, friends. It's good for you, okay? So that's muscles. Most people have some sense of muscle. And they try to do, this is an embarrassing thing, but people will look at a master of Aikido or Tai Chi Chuan or something, and the master is doing some kind of beautiful pulsing, and then the students are just all muscle. And it's just, oh, it's embarrassing, isn't it? So anyway, what we want to do here is get clear with tendon experience, and that's not the same thing as muscle experience. Does that make sense to everybody? Now, I want to be clear, these are not hierarchical in the sense of one is cool and one is not cool. They're all good. The fact that you have muscles is like super in your favor. It's all good, right? But you want to also be in contact with tendons. And this has to do with your health and your longevity. This is not just martial power, okay? This is the healthy functioning of your body, okay? Okay, so muscles, tendons, and ligaments, okay? Then you have a separate a function, a system, I guess, in the body, and that is your fascia, okay? Fascia. The fascia in the body is, it's like a sheet that winds around muscles. So like if you imagine, like if you've got a sausage or a hot dog or something, there's all the meat inside, and then around it is a casing. Okay. And if the casing winds at the ends, that's what we call a ligament or a tendon. Okay. So when fascia winds up together, it becomes a ligament. And most people are aware of those. But what we're not aware of is that casing that's all the way around the sausage is actually fascia. Okay. And it's not only there, like in your muscles, you have got a winding of fascia that goes all the way around the muscle. Okay. It's also inside the muscle strands. So if you've got muscle strands here, there's fascia that winds those three, and there's fascia that winds each strand. So everything is wrapped like like hot dogs or sausages or something like that. And then you take a bunch of sausages and you wrap them in fascia, and it's all this connective tissue, okay? It's called fascia. And there are massive sheets of it that go all the way across the body, diagonally, down the sides of the back and down the back and down the front, all the way through the legs. And when you move from fascia, it feels like your shirt. Like if you pull your shirt and then relax it, it's like a sheet. Okay. So when I move with fascial awareness in the body, it's like accessing the saran wrap kind of stretch and release. And it's a very, very different internal sensation from tendon. Tendon feels very like a string that gets released. Bang. Okay. Fascia feels like a sheet in the body. So there's a way of doing the same motion that actually is fascially active. And there's a way of doing the same motion that is tendon and ligament active. And there's a way of doing it that's muscularly active. I don't expect you to know how to do that right now if it's new information to you, but just cognitively, just kind of get the idea of this. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, so it's about intimacy with the body, actually being in contact with your structure for real. Okay, now there's further than that. Okay, the next is fluids in the body. So arteries. What is it? What's the other side of an artery? A vein. That's it. Veins and arteries. Okay, but it's actually all the fluids of the body. So an adept can make a movement that I'll show you, and you can be thinking of and contacting and feeling the fluids in the body and having them pulse. So it feels, when you do that, it rather feels like a tide, like the moon comes back here, and then all the fluids of the body are drawn to the moon. And then the moon comes up here and all the fluids come out to it. So it's kind of like the fluids are passively moving in response to the moon's gravitational shift. So when you work with the fluids of the body, there's a way of creating that gravitational pull. It's kind of like water bending, I guess, in the Avatar series or something. It's like you're pulling the fluids of the body in and then sending the fluids of the body out. And for most people, that can be very abstract. That's not an easy one to start with. People don't usually talk about it very much. But when you have a mind of samadhi, when you can actually concentrate and hold your mind somewhere and put your mind in your body and feel it, this becomes accessible. Okay. And it feels, if you've ever had an old water pump that was connected to a well, where it's like an old wrought iron pump, and you have to kind of do it a few times, and then it catches, and then suddenly it's connected with the water, and you're bringing the water up. It feels like that. You have to kind of do it a few times, and then it catches, and then you start to feel the fluids of the body coming in and coming out. And just a footnote I'll put in here: do not ever concentrate on your heart when you're doing this. Never. You always concentrate on the lower dantian and the spine, and that's fine. You can always draw fluids into the spine, and then go out from the spine to the limbs. No harm, no foul, no problem. Do not draw fluids into the heart or away from the heart. Just to say it. Okay. Okay, so there's fluids, and then last is ki itself. Okay, and ki itself is the most elusive of all these things, but ki itself is literally just energy. And there are ways of breathing. It's often we connect with the breath to get access to this, but ultimately it does not have to be, and in fact shouldn't always be tethered to breathing. But we can find ways to guide the chi itself through the body. And this, there are channels, okay? And this is where the subject of channels comes up in the body. There are channels in the body, just like there are veins and arteries, there are key channels in the body. And what we want to do is lead the chi through those channels of the body in ways that are productive and healthful. Okay, and there's a basic tenet in all of this that is you put your mind somewhere and the key accrues or gathers, and then the body follows. So it's mind, chi, body. Okay, so you put your mind in the channel, you draw through it, and then the chi starts to move in this way, and then lastly, the body is carried. So when I do this, again, it looks the same. You'd never know, but if I do this thing and I'm concentrating on the chi, the driver of the motion is chi. If I do this motion and I'm concentrating on tendons, the driver of the motion is tendons. Okay. Ultimately, one can, how do I say this? You pay attention to each one of these things in succession, and then eventually they merge. And so what ends up happening is your whole body is pulsing. Okay. And it produces a kind of power that can seem supernatural or something. It's not. It's just a well-coordinated body filled with aliveness and intent. But, you know, when you interact with a body like that, it's a little startling, you know. I mean, I'm speaking from my experience with Bill Sensei and Aikido, you know. I mean, there are martial uses for this. They should be fairly obvious at this point. I haven't talked about it, but I mean, you know, if you can imagine, if you coordinate every cell of your body basically into a movement, it's a pretty goddamn powerful movement. Okay, it's startlingly powerful compared to someone who's only ever encountered muscular power. If someone's got muscle, maybe a ton of muscle, but that's all they got, and someone else much smaller, much muscularly weaker, but they have got all these other aspects of the body accessed and online, they're going to move less and generate way more force. Okay, so we're not here for martial training, although I recommend Aikido. But even just for health and longevity, okay, the same power is used actually to generate circulation in the body in itself. And this is all to the benefit. Okay, so that's, yeah, I think that's what I have to say right now. So what we've talked about in this class is we've kind of finished up a little bit about dealing with difficulties in the body with dissolving, okay? And then, you know, we cleared up a little question about dispersing, transmuting, and recycling, and then we talked about dissolving, and that's what you do when you're encountering a difficulty in the body. Fine. And then now I've introduced this business of pulsing, okay? And what I want you to do as a practical exercise, don't worry if any of this seems like what the hell is all this about? Just don't worry about it. Just kind of take it in as a cognitive map, believe that it's possible, or at least that, you know, it's worth exploring. And then what you can do very simply is take this standing posture that we've done. Okay, we've done it like this, hands down to the sides and like this, okay? And just very, very simply, just bring your wrists up like this. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw in and out. And you can use that as a way to just explore this. And you won't hurt yourself or do anything wrong, but basically your arms are coming in and going out. Your legs are parallel also coming in and out, opening and closing, you could say. And your spine is doing the same thing, okay? So the spine is closing and opening, right? The arms are opening and closing, and the legs are opening and closing. And if you do this at no other level than just muscularly, okay, again, you're going to shift from here. This is the first Bodhidharma posture, by the way, is this. Okay, you go from, it's a big difference from here whoosh, to there. Okay, now you have your hands, it's kind of here, right? And then just gently, just pulse a little bit and just explore it. I'm going to tell you that if you do really big, massive motions, you're not doing it, okay? You want, it's not like an aerobics class or something. It's just very, very subtle. But just ask yourself the question, if I were to do this muscularly, how would it be? Research it. If I were to feel this ligaments, what would that be like? See if you can tune into it a little bit. If I were to do this feeling fascia, what would that be like? And just kind of with curiosity, lean into it. Okay. So the practice at this point is standing, connecting to the standing posture, grounding, dispersing and dissolving. And then hands come up, and the wrists come like this, and then just explore a little bit pulsing. Next class, I'll introduce breath and how it coordinates with this, just to make sure it's super clear. And then we'll go through these different aspects in a little bit more detail. Okay, does that make sense to everybody? All right. Listen, I'm aware that we're a little bit over time here, and I want to respect everybody's connection. But if anybody has a super quick question about this, if there's anything that seems like you don't know enough to look into it, I can try to address it quickly. Seems like we're good though, huh? Shokai, you're good? You know what to do? All right, everybody.
I think we need to just play with it.
That's sister, thank you. That's the right word. This is something to play with right now. That's right. And don't worry about doing it wrong outside of concentrating in your heart or your brain. Don't do that either. But just pulse and just explore and see what you notice. You know what I mean? And then next week we'll start with, okay, what did you notice? Well, I noticed nothing, or I noticed a ton or whatever, and we'll see where it goes. And then I'll kind of guide us through. Basically, this pulsing business happens in every one of the postures. Okay, so like understanding how to pulse is like more important than learning what all the postures are and like muscularly doing them all, but not actually practicing correctly at all, right? So pulsing first. All right. Okay, thank you everybody for indulging this and for taking your health and longevity seriously in this particular way. Let's quickly dedicate the merit. By the merit generated today in our encountering these teachings, may suffering be relieved, particularly from those who find themselves ill of health this day. And all the days between now and when we meet again, may they find health, may they find movement in the body, may circulation increase and joy thrive. May it be so. All right, everybody. I'll get this posted as soon as I can and review it as much as you like. Thank you all.
Good night.